with the EVOQ bike. Let's get into Carter County. What I want to go over is really what does it take to ride a Pro 1-2 break, especially when there's a small field. So we'll talk about the difference in a lot of people chasing you and not a lot of people chasing you. I want to talk about what it takes to climb, to do a 30-minute effort at the end of a race. This one, I was over 4,000 kJs at that point because I was in the break from the gun. Why I was in the break from the gun, we'll talk about that. And that's really going to be the two big points of this video, and also how do people that do well on the climb approach the climb. Spoiler, it's not just constant power. And then the most important thing, if you feel like you're lacking some of these metrics that we're going to talk about in terms of watts per kg and just raw power, what can you do to get better at that? So, Carter County, brutal race. It's going to end at the top of Roan Mountain. It's a 2,800 foot climb. The KOM is probably just over 30 minutes for the race portion. I have only done this race once before. I didn't feel like it was going to be, I was hoping I would do better because I came off of a week. This isn't an excuse, just to paint the picture of why I feel like I was going to do better. Went away for my husband's birthday, came back, and 2 days later was the race. So I did an opener's ride and I rode. And my mom actually convinced me, which was hilarious. I said, I don't know if I want to go do this race. I'm just going to get shellacked. She said, but you'll go and learn the course and you'll learn something from it. So if you ever go back, you've already ridden it once. And I thought, that's the best idea ever. So I got in the break early in 2021 with Jimmy Sherman, with 4 of us or 5 of us. And actually, no, I think I bridged up later and Will Hardin was there. I wasn't in it from the gun. And I ended up, it was pretty hot. I was dead at the end of the climb. I think I only could do 330 watts up the climb. Threshold at that point was probably about 410. So tempo-ish, just RIP dead. Hoping for a better result. I had one teammate, Landry Bobo, who was coming back from Colorado. And I said, how are your climbing legs? And he told me, I feel better than I felt in a really long time. And I said, well, man, I'll ride for you. I have no chance really of winning on this climb. How do you feel about that? He said, well, you're doing the Omnium. I don't want you to wreck your race, giving it up for me. I said, man, I can do a ton of work for you and still get about the same place. I feel that I was honest. Hey, if I get a top 10 at Carter County on the road race, I'd be pretty happy with that. The climb, I'm 82 kgs. It's just going to be really hard for me to do well. That's just not something I excel at. And so I said, I knew Jimmy Sherman was going to be there. He was going to go from the gun. He said, let's rip this break. I said, well, okay, maybe I'll do this. Now, here's the thing. The field was very small, and we're talking 25 riders. In the Omnium, there were maybe 10, and by the end of the crit, there were 6 left. This turns into a hard group ride. Since it's a lot of single riders, the guys that want to try and win on the climb are not obviously going to go super early, but they're also not going to let us get a huge gap, because then if it's 4 of us up the road and only 10 of them chasing, then they'll really be busting their ass later to try and close the gap to then attack the climb on each other. Whereas so this year we had 2 minutes to the field when we hit the climb. The year before, or 2021, we had over 4 minutes, but the field was deep. It had a lot of Project Echelon guys. It had Stephen Bassett was still on rally with Nate Brown. It had a couple Mike Spikes guys. It was climbers that are flying up this climb. And then I also talked to Trevor August. His brother AJ was on the podcast. Trevor's from Rochester. He won in 2022, I believe, and ripped it. And yeah, that was a bigger field, and just he had 4 teammates and they rode it really well, and I'll hit on that. So there's a lot going on in this video. And as you can see, if you're watching the video, I kind of have the outline of some of the main points that I want you to be able to take away from this. So total stage was 3 hours and 41 minutes, normalized 364 watts. That's 4.4 watts per kg, averaged 340, which is 4.14. That's me at 82 kgs. It was from the gun, 4 of us. We lost a guy pretty early. I could tell that he was not going to make it. His pulls were barely pulls and just on the rivet. And once we turned right off of 19E, if you're familiar with the course, and it started getting rolly, and you can see in the image here, we're hitting well above threshold, he was gone. So peak 20 minutes at the start was just under 400 watt normalized. Peak 1 hour was 380 normalized. So this is another thing for Cat 4s and 5s and I've said this 500 times on the channel, people say, oh, well, it's so-and-so's turn to get in the break this week. It is not as if we just say, hey, you 5 guys, you're in the break, see ya. I asked people, I was like, how are people riding behind that we only stayed 2 minutes up? And they said 12 people were just rotating. So you need to be able to ride on the gas. I'd already talked about why I was in the break early to allow Lanny to rip the climb. And 2.5 hours in the break was 1 hour and 15 minutes at threshold, 50 minutes at VO2 max. And when I say at VO2 max, someone's going to be a wise guy and say, well, there's no such thing as VO2 max power. If you made a zone of 105 to 120% FTP, that 50 minutes was in that. And only 2 minutes above 600 watts, which is great because those efforts obviously really zap the legs. To put that into perspective, a really amateur-wise, tough road race, I would say like 9 to 13 minutes of FRC. You'll see even a crit, since it's only 1 hour or 90 minutes, you're probably not going to see over 10 minutes. Again, it does depend on the rider and how the race unfolds. Pro race is definitely a different story. We averaged 24 miles an hour at a 0.92 IF for 2.5 hours in the break. That was just under 3,200 kJs, 200 TSS, average 339 watts. So what do you need to do? I feel as an amateur rider, a lot of people might hear that, and especially if they're a Cat 3 thinking, dude, I can't do that yet. And that's okay. The key word is yet. Have the yets. You can't do it yet. Just keep training. What do I think you need to do? One huge thing that some people don't think is very beneficial, but I've had national champs who have messaged me and said, holy crap, dude, that no coasting mindset on these endurance rides helped me so much in this 45-minute time trial. Or I was in this breakaway and literally rode away from people because I just didn't stop pedaling. And it sounds silly, but if you have endurance rides, and I've sort of tweaked this number as I've lived in different areas. When I lived in more rolling terrain, I always said, don't coast more than 10%, or don't have zone 1 time and coasting more than 10%. I've changed my tune a little bit now that I live in the mountains, and I don't know if it would be possible in these types of mountains because it's so much up and down. If I have 20 to 23%, that's a really good day. Some days I'm at a quarter of the time is going 40 miles an hour down the backside of a mountain. I'm not going to be pedaling then. I don't want to kill myself, and you run out of gear. But those, just keeping the pressure on the pedals is so beneficial. And if you do live in a hilly area, find those segments that are 30, 45 minutes, do some tempo bits on that. I think those are also beneficial, the muscular endurance. And then even over-unders, let's see here. I'm going to just pick a random spot here and hopefully this works out. Here's a random 30 minutes, right? If we zoomed in on this, look at this. Is pretty much like this is when I'm pulling, this is when I'm not pulling. You're not pulling at tempo. There's a lot of 360 riding, and then there's a lot of 450 riding. And this is literally, and there's your break. And then you go back and do an over-under. This is why I have people do hard start, like 4-minute hard starts. It's just very applicable to the actual racing. And the last thing that I would say is, obviously, your VO2 max work is where you are really actually increasing your aerobic capacity to produce energy with oxygen. You want to do that. It has way less fatigue and metabolites than if you're producing energy anaerobically. Where does threshold training fall into this? Man, that would be like the over-unders. Yes, you could do 4x8s above threshold, I believe. Do I think you need to go out and ride for 2.5 hours just really hard? I would say go race instead. Now, if you don't have a ton of races, yeah, you could have a day where you go out and you just say, every time the road goes uphill, I'm going hard. I'm going 110 to 115 to 120% FTP. If it's short, I might go even harder. That's fine. I just don't, and I think that though is the expression of all the interval work that you do beforehand and all of the base miles that you've done and all of the no coasting rides. So I think all those rides that I'm talking about then put you in the place to have that performance. I don't think you need to do a ton of 2.5 hour interval type rides. I think all the changes happen in the actual interval sessions. If that's not clear, let me know in the comments. Now, what happens when we get to the climb? Stephen Bassett, who won, kudos, Stephen, been on the podcast a few times. I'm a big fan. Really nice guy, racing for Project Echelon. He's raced in Europe a ton. If you don't know Stephen, I think one of the finishes at Joe Martin when it was a UCI race, when he won with First Internet, the way you see him attack that last climb, and I can't remember the stage, where it's just that steep uphill pitch at the end for, I can't even remember because I was shelled many minutes back very early in that race, and I rode up it slowly. He climbs aggressively. And I love to see, I don't even know if it was Instagram back then. I saw a video and was just thinking, Steven is such a beast. This is so cool to see. He did the climb this year in 34 minutes at 399 watts. That's 5 watts per kg. In 2021, when Nate pulled the brake back, Nate Brown pulled the brake back, they did it in 32:15. Steven did 403 watts. The key here to the climb, you got to go hard in the beginning for the first 4 to 6 minutes, 7 minutes. And both times, Steven's been doing over 6 watts a kg. When we got to the climb, Jimmy Sherman attacked because we had another rider who was not really riding very politely, and he wanted to drop him, jettison me. I would have to do 480 watts, and asking myself to do 480 watts for 6 minutes with 4,200 kJs, I cannot do that right now. I don't know if I can ever do that. And here's where my training has improved a lot in the last probably 2 to 3 years, is more actual VO2 max training. I was sort of trained what we'll call more old school when I started getting into cycling in 2009. It was still constant power threshold. It was long rides, which are gold, and that is still very valuable. But a lot of people were still saying, oh, the really hard stuff you get in races, just go race. And we know that, and they would say VO2 max is just hereditary. It's already determined by your genetics. We know that's not true. You can train your VO2 max. So I have improved my VO2 max. I probably don't train it as much as I should late in the day for races like this. And that's why I got dropped. So other notable athletes that did this in 2021 that I was stalking on Strava, Zach Gregg, who was on the podcast, shout out to Zach. He did 5.4 watts per kg in 2021, and I'm wondering if he was doing work for any of the Echelon guys. I didn't look up where he placed, but that was one of the higher watts per kg that I saw, and I didn't obviously go through everybody that was in the race that day. End of the day, you got to be able to do 5 watts per kg at least, and we'll jump ahead. Trevor August did, his power's not on Strava, so I texted him and I was like, yo, dude, I'm doing a video recap. He did the climb in 36:07. So, I mean, the times, there could be wind. It depends on how people are racing. He was in the break all day from the gun like we were. He did it in 36:07, which is 2.5 minutes faster than me this year. And I didn't have Jimmy's time down, damn it. He said he did 4.5 watts a kg the whole stage, 5.2 for the last 40 minutes. So again, you got to be over 5. I don't want to say you have to be. It would be a great idea if you could do 5. Now here's the thing. So Jonathan Jacob, he came in 4th behind me. So I got 3rd. When Bassett passed me, it was like a car going past a little dune buggy. And I said, okay. And there was another rider ahead of me who was in the break with us. And I said, well, I'm catching that dude. I could see he was slow. I'm catching him. And I just played, Brendan, treat this like a freaking 30-minute interval that you got to do, which I do. And go out, because sometimes I'll take my 15-minute intervals and combine them. Or if I have a 20-minute interval, I might add 10 minutes on if I feel good in the session. And I said, just go as hard as you can. And I'm going to try to keep Steven in sight as long as possible. And I actually kept him in sight for probably 5 minutes, maybe. Felt like 5 minutes, 6 minutes. We turned a corner. I could still see him, and then he hit the gas at one point, and I think he probably saw Jimmy and was going to track him down. So I lost sight. So, okay, just keep on smashing. Jonathan was behind, and I beat him only by like 20 seconds maybe at the end of the day. He did the climb 2 minutes faster than me. He did it at 343 watts. I don't know what his weight is, though. You'll hear from Kevin Vermarka on the podcast coming up in the end of June, World Tour rider. He said there's not really much advantage to people hiding watts and all that stuff. He doesn't post a ton of stuff because he's not into social media, but I hope everyone comes back around to just sharing their data, because if you think just knowing the watts per kg and not really looking at how someone rides, it's not going to help someone beat you in a bike race. And, I think if you're hiding it as a Cat 3, I don't know why you would do that. But everybody do what you want to do. Do you. I'm not telling you what to do. Landry came in 5th. He did 4.6 watts a kg. He stopped his Garmin too early, so I couldn't get all the data from that and wasn't going to go manually do it. Sherman did 4.57. So as you can tell, the people that didn't win, myself, who did 4.46, Sherman, who did 4.57, Landry did 4.6, we didn't win. We were under that 5 watt a kg. Okay, we beat that to death. So what do I have to do? I need to do some 4,000 kj rides because I burn 4,200 kjs, then need to hit the VO2 max. And let me make sure I have that correct. There's where the climb really starts. And here's 3 hours. I did, 3,600 kjs. The thing is, I warmed up a good bit. I did 4,500 kjs the whole race there. I had 520 since I knew I'd be gunning for the break early. And I was talking to Troy Fields about warm-ups. We have other blogs on this. If you go and do an effort where you're warmed up, aerobically warmed up, you've, hit a little bit of tempo, maybe a little threshold, did a little VO2 max opener, like 30 seconds, whatever, and you get the aerobic system primed. In theory, and this is what I've read from other people that are much smarter than me, if you go out and do the same effort, same 500 watt effort, 400 watt effort, whatever it is that's hard for you, if you're warmed up, you're gonna create more of that energy aerobically. So there's way less fatigue and metabolites than if you go and just bang that puppy fresh. So if you are the athlete that is riding around the parking lot, not warming up, and then you go race the race like it's a normal race, you are doing yourself a disservice. Take 20 minutes and actually warm up. Go burn 250 kjs and be warm and ready. And you don't need to time it exactly to be at the start line. You could go stand around for 10 or 20 minutes. I remember Adam Meyerson. If you don't know that name, you're very new to cycling. He had a thing where he was talking about how crazy people were doing these warm-ups on turbos. And I'm almost positive it was him who was talking about this on Twitter way back in the day. And there was, I don't know if there was a study or if it was just his anecdote, but saying you'll stay warmed up for 30 minutes. And I do believe that you might get that little kind of clunky feeling in your legs if you're literally standing, waiting for a big crit to start and everyone's sort of in the staging area. But the aerobic system's still primed, and I think that's really key. So that's the break. That's the climb. Hopefully this helps you get a better sense of what you need and then what you need to do to be able to do those. And then also what you can do for the climbs and how you can train for them. The VO2 max, the over-unders, the long rides, hit the tempo bits. And you're saying, geez, that's everything. There's no one ride that's going to make you have this massive leap to doing 4.5 watts a kg for whatever it was, almost 4 hours. If, in a season, if you're at 3, you've got a long ways to go. You just need to keep riding and training. And I think that the variety in training is key. That's going to be massive. So I also, last thing on the podcast, we've got some great interviews coming up. I hopefully am becoming a better interviewer and podcaster and getting good feedback from people that's been really constructive and helpful. And we have some awesome guests who are finding us on Instagram, and I'm really grateful for the athletes who are taking the time to share their insights. A few people have said, hey, I've noticed that the podcast has become very heavy in pro athletes. They said, I have no chance of being a pro. Where are these video breakdowns? That's where you're getting these. I've talked to Will Hardin. I think there's even more soft skills and just the little tidbits from race weekends that I would love to continue to pass along to riders that are newer, that, maybe this is more for Cat 3, 4s, and 5s. I told a rider, I can't remember how this came up, but I said, well, you've got like a sponge and your dish and you're going to wash your bottles in between all these stages. He said, wait, what do you mean a sponge? I said, dude, get a little Palmolive, have a little sponge. When you are self-sufficient at a hotel, when you're there for 3 days and you can wash a cereal bowl and you have an actual spoon and you have your coffee mug and you're making your coffee and you don't have to wait on Becky down in it's 5:30 a.m. The food's not open. They're going to give you this piece of crap styrofoam bowl. Come with a few things that make your hotel room a little bit more like your house. Your comfort level will greatly increase. You will live on your own timeline and you'll be less stressed. And after the race weekend, he said, holy crap, dude, I never knew a sponge would change my life. My teammates were racing around trying to find all this crap because I was a bad teammate and didn't tell them about this new key of bringing a sponge and a little bit of soap. He said, I had all my stuff ready. I was eating what I wanted. I was chilling in bed. They were running around on the race morning trying to get spoons and this and that. And so I'm like, damn, we need to keep talking about that stuff. And always hit us up in the comments with what you want to hear. I think that the thing about EVOQ is that we're all athletes at different ranges. We have these amazing pros that are giving gems and tips and new riders that are hoping to aspire to be there. We have people like myself who's 42 where I'm kind of floating between some P1-2 races and doing master stuff, and Will's younger and doing the big pro crits, and Landry's climbing, and then we have the off-road guys, Tom and Noggle, and there's Grau. There's just a lot of things going on. I think there's value in a lot, and you just need to come here for what is applicable to you and what helps you get faster. Because at the end of the day, the only reason we're posting stuff is hopefully you get faster and that your passion continues to grow for cycling. I hope to stay a healthy and fit athlete for a really long time. And I realize I'm on a soapbox right now, no pun intended. But that is just evoke your best self. See what you want to become. Have something to strive for. And just put in some work and see what happens. I promise you will be amazed at how far you go. And if you just keep doing it over and over and over, get the reps in, you'll be shocked at the athlete you become, no matter where you are at in your journey of being an endurance athlete. All right, hope this was helpful. Let me know what you think of these. I haven't done many of these. I enjoy doing them because I'm kind of doing this breakdown anyways for myself afterwards so I can think forward to next year. And then just making a video about it. If they're not helpful, kindly say in the comments why. And the only reason I ask for kindly is because I have feelings too. And it's like, it sucks to get crapped on. Thanks for watching. Good luck with your training racing. See ya.